Well, let's just keep it going. You ready? You push the right button?
Ready, set, go. There we go.
This one?
Yep. Much better. It's just the way things go.
Yeah, here we go for the 100th time. Hand grenade pins in
221st time.
Throw them up and let something shine. Going out of my fucking mind. Filthy mouth, no excuse. Find a new place to hang this noose. String me up from atop these roofs. Knot it tight so I won't get loose. Truth is you can stop and stare.
There it is. I love this song. Good stuff right there. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good choice. Good choice. Here we are. Welcome back to Geoholics episode 221.
221.
Yes, I can't believe we made it to 221 episodes.
Well, at this point, we're just going to keep saying that every week. Like, I can't believe we made it to this.
222.
Yeah. Well, how about let's make a pact? The next milestone will be 250, and then we'll reflect on it.
Fair enough.
From then on, we're just going to keep going.
It'll be half a year from now, but I can wait.
So sometime next year.
All right. Couple things we got to update people on. Some events coming up. Want to make sure we mention. Women's Survey Summit is coming up August 1st through the 4th in Pittsburgh this year.
That's right. Yeah.
To find out more, go to futuresurveyors.com.
Are we doing something for
the
that?
Geoholics will be awarding a what should we call this? A scholarship.
Yeah.
Scholarship for somebody to attend that event.
Yes.
So to find out more, stay tuned to our social media because we are going to be releasing the details. It'll just be a short essay that you have to write. Tell us why you think you should go.
The second year in a row we've done this, right?
Yeah, super successful last year. It was great. Made a new friend as a result too.
Yeah, that's right. Still a friend.
Yep. Another event I want to make sure I mention, the 2024 Field Crew Olympics.
Ooh.
Yes. Our good friend, Ben Shinneberry.
That's right.
Posted something about this. That is July 26th. So it's right around the corner.
That's the guy that brought us this bottle, right?
He did bring us that bottle, indeed.
Yeah.
And it is being sponsored by the Kentucky Association of Professional Surveyors. To find out more about that, go to CAPS1. That's KAPS, the number 1.com.
Yeah. Cool.
And other than that, what's new with you?
I always say not a whole lot, but I'm not doing it this week. Man, there's a lot going on. It is for everything's aligning where people are going on vacation as they should. It's the summer, and man, business is just going crazy. I mean, it's just flowing in like crazy.
Yep.
New opportunities, setting revenue and margin records and all kinds of great stuff. Like it's really an exciting time.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Hey, what about you? You just got in from a little trip again?
I did. Yeah. I spent the weekend in Pine, which was nice. We actually drove back Monday night and then I left Tuesday morning, first flight out to California for a business trip. And, did a great presentation on Wednesday that I'm super excited about and hopefully we get selected on. And just had a really, really good time all around. Got to see some folks that I haven't seen in a while. Quick flight attendant story for you.
Oh, I love these.
You're going to love this. And our guest probably will too, because I'm assuming he flies a fair amount. So my good friend Duffy. Boss.
We know and love.
Yep. He and I were sitting at a hotel bar one evening.
Shocker.
And started making friends with a couple ladies next to us, and they were both flight attendants. And we were just talking about like, they've got to come up with a better way to board and deboard planes. It is the most mind-numbing process when it comes to traveling. And you know what she said? This is potentially a game-changing idea. She's like, we're thinking we're going to board from the back.
Oh,
because what's going to happen? Everybody's going to board from the back and go immediately to the front. Whereas if you board from the front, everybody gets on. And
Why would they not board from the back and push it?
Yep.
Interesting.
And then deboard from the front. Not a bad idea, right?
That's really not a bad idea.
You think about it. I'm like, why isn't everybody doing that right now?
Is the door not big enough back there? Or?
I don't know. I have no idea. So that was good. And the other thing I want to mention, NBA draft. Did you watch it, Bill?
What
a freaking circus this has turned out to be.
Well, it's just a different kind of draft. I mean, there's a different, way to prepare and progress players, and they go into different leagues, and the international guys are way more,
it's crazy.
They're younger, but more talented. It's a different kind of draft than it was 20 years ago, where just the best college guys go. Yep. It's completely different.
And I think this has changed recently, but now kids can make themselves eligible for the NBA draft after their freshman year. So like half the kids getting drafted were like freshmen in college. They're, they're showing them and they're coming up and they look like they're freaking 12 years old.
But it's turning into, how baseball does it, where they draft a guy and then shove him into their program, and then 3 years later he's going to be a stud. That's how that's because now there's G League and there's development leagues and there's multiple levels. So that's the identify the talent early, get them in the program, and that's how they've been successful.
And the last thing I'm going to say about it is I have no idea who tells these kids what to wear and thinks and tells them that appearance looks really good. I'm like, what in the hell is happening?
I mean,
it just confirmed why I'm not an NBA fan.
I'm an NBA fan despite the terrible outfits.
Fair enough. All right. Tell us about that opening number.
All right. That was a band called Linkin Park, song called Bleed It Out. A little bit about these guys. Linkin Park is an American rock band from Aurora, right? Aurora Hills, California.
Aurora Hills. Yep.
The band's current lineup comprises vocalist, rhythm guitarist, keyboardist Mike Shenandoah, lead guitarist Brad Delson, bassist David Farrell, DJ Joe Hahn, and drummer Rob Burden, all of whom are founding members. And former members, vocalist Mark Wakefield and Chester Bennington, tragically passed away in 2017. Really sad
story.
They formed in 1996. Linkin Park rose to international fame with their debut studio album, Hybrid Theory, released in 2000, and became certified diamond. They're among the best-selling bands of the 21st century and the world's best music artist. Best-selling music artist.
Best-selling. Amazing. Yeah. 100 million records worldwide.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Yeah. If we can get 100 million listeners, I think we'd be onto something.
Maybe we might have something there.
We might be able to quit our full-time jobs. If that happens.
Maybe just slip into a 1099 consulting position and then maybe focus a little more on the show.
Let's manifest this. Let's do it. Okay.
The first step, get it out there.
Yeah, but we just did. All right. So I'm going to preface this by saying that producer Sean here put this evening's show together.
I did.
Normally it's my job to do that.
I know.
I had no time to do it this week. So producer Sean stepped up and said, you know what? I will love to do that for you, Kent.
I did say that. Yep. Those words exactly.
So if things go completely sideways,
I knew there was a disclaimer coming at some point.
All right. So I think we're in the David Evans and Associates.
We are. Yes.
Studio.
Yes. That's what those words say.
Not the highlighted one, but I think I know what you meant.
Would you just keep going?
At David Evans, they join their clients to make a positive difference. DEA is a recognized leader in the design and management of complex transportation, land development, water resources, and energy projects nationwide. They combine the talents of engineers, surveyors, planners, hydrographers, always mess that one up, landscape architects, and natural resources scientists to provide their clients access to a complete range of services. DEA is consistently ranked among Engineering News Record's top 100 peer design firms in the U.S. and among leaders in many of their local markets. To find out more, visit DEAINC.com.
Great company.
Really good place to work. I can tell you that from experience.
Right.
Is this you? This is me. No. Oh, this is you. Okay. Next up, we have the Geomax Weekly Service Pro Tip. To find out more about Geomax, simply go to geomax-positioning.com.
All right. Short one, but I like this.
It's good.
All right. So here we go. Success isn't a result of spontaneous combustion. You must set yourself on fire.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I like the visual that comes with that of the
me running around on fire, or
a little bit of that, yeah.
Like that?
But the idea of it just doesn't happen. You got to go out and get it. None of this perseverance and perspiration kind of shit. But I mean, that's what it takes. Is basically the equivalent of setting yourself on fire to be successful.
Yeah. Speaking of perspiration, it is hotter than shit in Phoenix right now. This is a miserable time.
Well, I mean, the good news is there's like the monsoons, which makes it humid in the mornings. The monsoon's great. It rains a little bit, but man, like the only break you have is early in the morning.
Yes.
And then when you go out, it's 5 a.m. and it is like 60% humidity.
I am not enjoying living in Phoenix right now.
It's tough.
It's tough. Yeah. And it's got to be bad if you say it's tough.
Yeah.
You're the guy that likes
I can usually handle it, but man, you add the humidity. I feel like I'm in the South again. It's just,
all right.
All right. Let's keep going.
I am a little bit concerned about this portion of the show, but I think we can pull it off.
Why is that?
This is the GeoSearch Career Corner.
Okay.
What do we got going here? We're going to tag team this, right?
Yeah.
So we actually are going to talk about an opportunity that GeoSearch has available.
Yep. You want me to start it?
Go right ahead.
All right. So this client of GeoSearch is looking for a high energy, dynamic, and experienced project surveyor. Their position will report to their growing office in Atlanta, Georgia. This candidate will primarily be working in the office, but occasional field work may occur. And they are open to considering a hybrid arrangement for the right candidate, but candidates must be in the greater Atlanta area.
All right. They are seeking career-minded individuals for challenging projects, including all types of land surveying-related work. Projects include boundary, altas, easement, and right-of-way surveys, topographic surveys, GPS control surveys, design surveys, and construction layout. This individual would work under the supervision of the survey manager.
Yeah, and almost done here. The required experience, 5 years with Trimble GPS and Total Station is strongly preferred. Professional land surveyor, registered land surveyor is required. Not really any degree requirements, but an associate's or technical degree is preferred. And they must have experience with easement, right-of-way surveys, plats, all the normal stuff, and experience in survey technology, including LiDAR and photogrammetry. And also in acoustic sonar technology is a plus.
Are you sure that's not a typo?
Nope.
I don't even know what that is.
I don't either. But apparently, if someone's out there
it's a thing.
and has experience in that, you may find your position.
You know what? If somebody out there listening is a professional acoustic sonar technologist,
email us. We want you on the show.
We'd love to have you on the show so we can figure out what the hell that is.
Right.
All right. To find out more about this amazing opportunity, simply go to geosearch.com. All right. Here we go. Let's loop our guest into this. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Dude, by the way, you got the wrong guest name on here. Our guest this evening is Tom LeClair. And a little bit about Tom before we jump him in here officially. He was born in Detroit, Michigan. My wife was born in Detroit, as a matter of fact. Some odd jobs he's had in the past, and I want to find out about a number of these. Commercial fisherman in Alaska. Restaurant owner-operator. Owns a billboard company, I believe, and has been a taxi driver.
I'm guessing those aren't in that order.
Probably not in that order.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, if so, there's a problem.
Well, hey, depends on your passions, you know?
In his free time, he enjoys playing golf. He has, what is it called? Development of Rio 2100 Business Park in Tempe. I hear this is a really interesting project
we'll
for a
learn
number
about
of
that
reasons.
more.
We're going to learn more about that. His current job is an independent businessman. I want that job title.
I know.
I need to figure out how we get there.
We're going to learn what that is.
And his passion is travel and, as I mentioned, golfing. Tom, welcome to the Geoholics. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here with you guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. And you've got a great voice for this already.
Right?
He's all nervous and everything. And now that I hear his voice,
he's a natural.
He's going to steal our job. All right. Before we...
how's the pay?
You're not going to like it.
Okay. You're not going to like it.
You're not going to like
it's
that
safe
part.
then.
You will no longer be an independent businessman. I can tell you that.
Right.
All right. So before we make you really uncomfortable, we have to do an icebreaker. And this is sponsored by Trimble Geospatial. To find out more about Trimble Geospatial, it's geospatial.trimble.com. They are dedicated to big thinking innovation. Together with their worldwide distributor partners, the Trimble Geospatial team is working with current and future generations of surveyors for a more sustainable future.
When are we going to start talking about the dimensions coming up? Is that
A little too soon?
A little too soon?
Yep.
Okay.
In November.
All right.
That's a teaser.
All right. A little teaser.
Okay. Here's our icebreaker question for you. What's one thing on your bucket list that you haven't done yet and it can't be related to golf?
Okay. I would say skydiving.
Oh,
No way.
That's a good one.
But I think what I might do first is that indoor skydiving.
Oh, the one down the
Yes.
street there.
I
Okay.
think I'll try that first. It's more of a vertical wind tunnel.
Yeah.
So
That's what it looks
maybe
like.
Start with that and then decide.
You know what's
I think
crazy?
that's it.
The way you know I said no way? That's exactly mine.
Really?
Let's
Yeah.
go.
Well, why
I
don't you
know.
Are we going to go there? Let's do it.
Okay.
Why
All
don't
right,
you just
all
do it?
Let's do it. Let's go there and then.
And then depending if one of us throws up, if we don't, then
Do you
we're
have
hitting the plane.
Do you have like a milestone birthday coming up and everything you can do that on? Don't people do it like when they turn 50 or?
Yeah, but I don't
Something.
want to wait that long.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I'm gonna hold you to it. Now it's on tape.
It's memorialized.
It's memorialized.
What about you? What's one of yours?
Mine's travel related. You know, nothing super exciting. Like I want to. Well, I mean, there's so many things I want to do. I want to go to like a
Well, you gotta
F1,
pick- it says,
F1 race in
What's
Monaco. you know?
one thing?
Let's say that. Go to F1 race in Monaco.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Among other traveling things. How about you?
I just said it.
The same thing?
Yeah, it's the same thing. As, that was mine. I had it in my head before you said it.
Anticlimactic, as I
know.
What's the second thing?
Go to Tokyo for at least a week.
Okay.
Probably 2.
Does work can allow you to do that?
Always.
Okay.
That's a very flexible work-life balance here we have at Alta Southwest.
Producer Sean's life is a vacation.
That's what they say.
We've made that clear. All right, Tom. So tell us a little bit about, did you grow up in Detroit or was it a short-lived thing?
Yeah, you're going to have to give us the origin story. You were born on a wintry night and it was a Tuesday or something. Yeah.
It was
Eminem was playing.
Right. Yes, I was born and raised 0 to 18 years in the Detroit area.
Nice.
Pretty general upbringing. 3 siblings. My mom was a homemaker. My dad worked for General Motors.
Oh, okay. All right.
Motor City. He was on the design staff.
Nice. That's cool.
With the John DeLoreans and Harley Earls, and his division was styling, and that's where they would make the first clay prototype cars.
Awesome.
No way.
So when I was a kid, I would always see forward like 5 years of cars that were coming, futuristic cars. And so we were a car family.
Yeah.
But it was a great place to be raised, the Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
His father, my grandfather, was a milkman.
Oh, nice.
In Detroit?
In Detroit. And
that was like horse and
it was. So the interesting story. So my dad, when he was a kid, like 8, 9 years old, he would have to take care of the horses and go on the route with my grandpa.
Nice.
Who was delivering milk. And it was during the Depression. And of course, the milkman would go in to collect. And he would be in there for an inordinate amount of time. And my dad said I was freezing my ass off out on the wagon. What is Dad doing in there collecting so long? And I think that's where the milkman thing actually came from.
He was not collecting, by the way. He was distributing.
Well, are you just saying that there may be more long lost cousins floating around the greater Detroit area?
You said it, but that's the milkman.
Do not do 23andMe. That's all I can say. Do not do it.
And then my mom's parents were bootleggers.
That's awesome.
They would go to Canada where there was no prohibition and smuggle booze in across the Detroit River and run a speakeasy. So that's awesome. my background.
Nice.
So do you still want me to be on the show?
Yeah, no, I think you fit right in.
So you said your car family. What's your favorite car you've ever owned?
Oh boy. Well, I've had a Jaguar E-Type 66 red thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've had it for 30 years, but nice. I'm not a real mechanical guy, and I just would sit there and the tires would go flat, and I'd go out and look at it, and hardly ever drive it because every time but that would be that. It's not a General Motors car. That's kind of
So other end of the spectrum, what's a car that you'd love to own?
I'm from a car family because I grew up in Detroit, but I'm not big on the fancy Lamborghini type of thing. It's not my style. I'm more
you're more of a A to B kind of guy.
Yeah, I've had 5 Chevy Tahoes in a row. My wife finally said, "Okay, enough Tahoes. Would you get something else?"
Yeah. So you got the Escalade?
Yeah, that's why I'm Escalade.
There you go.
But anyway.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. I got to ask you one more question on cars, just because I know that Sean now has an EV in his family. What do you think of EVs?
I think they're great for around town. Mm-hmm. My wife just got a BMW electric hybrid. Mm-hmm. So it plugs into the 110 socket in our garage. Only gets about 25 miles on a charge. But I think you need that combination because we know some people that have electric cars that have had some bad experiences. Yep. I've seen some out on the road in the middle of the desert. We know what happened, why they're there. Mm-hmm. People say, "Oh, you need the infrastructure, chicken and egg. What comes first?" But I think we're going to have to continue on with. So bottom line is, for running around town, we should all have basically electric golf carts. Mm-hmm. Just because we all drive about 30 miles a day. Mm-hmm. But if you need that opportunity, the range anxiety factor. Yeah. So I think we still need to have. Unfortunately, the fossil fuel part of it.
100% agree.
Yeah, I like the hybrid family approach where all right, you have the daily around town driver, and
Totally
then
agree.
okay, when we're going on the family trip or we're going to drive, you got to go with old reliable and fill her up and hit the road. And at that point, if you're using it less, who cares if it's $3 or $4 or $5 a gallon, because it's not part of your daily. It's not a daily expense.
Not part of the workflow, as I said.
Yeah, exactly.
Real quick, funny EV story. I had a Lyft driver over the last few days that had what did he have? Polestar. He had a Polestar car. Super nice car. It was great. I mean, super solid. I loved it. But he lived in an apartment, so he didn't have a charger at home, right? So every night,
run an extension cord out.
No, every night he has to go to a charging station, near his house and charge it for 2 hours.
2 hours?
It takes 2 hours, unless you go to like a fast charge station, which I think takes 30 to 45 minutes.
Yep.
But he's like, every night I have to go to the charging station, drop it off, charge it. And I'm like, what do you do for 2 hours then? I mean, this sounds like really inconvenient. He's like, well, that's kind of my break time. I'll go to the gym and do this and that and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, oh, that just doesn't sound like that.
A couple things on that, since I've had about a month now. My wife has. They're starting to put more of the charging stations at Target, which is super smart because my wife will just go and spend money at Target and come back, and she's got about a half a tank or whatever it takes. And they also are starting to throttle even the superchargers. They're throttle the how fast you can charge depending on the time of day and demand and everything else.
It's a racket, man.
So it's like she went the other day thinking to one of those superchargers that should fill it up in 20-30 minutes, and they had throttled it down, and it was like, shoot, I came here and I got to be somewhere in 20 minutes. I got to pull it early and only get 40%, and I didn't think of that being a thing, but it definitely is, especially in the summer where power demand and everyone's cranking ACs because it's a million degrees outside. I never thought that would be a thing. Yeah.
The last thing I'll mention on this topic, because I thought it was interesting, is that I guess the price of the kilowatt isn't like mandated or something, so it fluctuates throughout the day, depending on demand. The price of that goes up, and I'm like, this is a total racket.
Of course it is.
And you have to pay to charge those cars, right? It's not free.
It's not free. So it's still cheaper than a full tank of gas, but it's not free. And it is an expense, and the expense does vary.
Yeah. Crazy. Really crazy. So I gotta ask, I listed a couple different jobs that you had. Some of those are very interesting. What came first, the fishing in Alaska or the taxi driver?
You said 0 to 18. What did you do at 18? You graduated high school and then hit the road with a thumb up and hitchhiked? Or
I actually did a lot of that later. I went to first I made a 2.5-year stop at the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
I went to school there. As an aside, in your earlier reference to the MBA, my math instructor for a year was Captain Popovich.
Really?
No, Coach Popovich?
He was my math instructor for a year
at
the Air Force Academy Prep School. Yeah. He was a great guy. And
he seems like just like a phenomenal person.
Yeah. Some of the officers were a little uptight, but he was cool. And when you look up his bio, they talk about his first coaching job, and it's wrong, because I know his first basketball coaching job was in 1974, 75, 76 at the Air Force Academy Prep School.
Wow.
He was the coach of the prep school basketball team.
Yeah.
And of course,
is that one of those ones that you eliminate on your resume because it's not going to help you at all?
Yeah. Well, I don't think he needs much help anymore.
Yeah, sure.
So I was there for 2.5 years.
Okay.
And it was interesting. I would have, if I would have graduated, which I did not, I was in the class of 1980, which the class of 80 for the service academies, Air Force, Annapolis, West Point, that was the first year that women were admitted to the service academies. So when I went as a dually as a freshman to the academy, when I got through the prep school and got my appointment to the academy, the first women cadets ever were part of my class.
What year was that? Like 1980, you said?
So if I would have graduated, it would have been the class. I was in the class of 1980.
Oh, I gotcha.
So 76 was, let's see, 75. Yeah. So 77, whatever, is when the first women came in the class of 80.
Yep.
So, there was a lot of media around monitoring kind of how they were doing.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing.
Interesting.
But
trailblazers right there.
Yeah. But ultimately it didn't really suit my style. So I decided to move on. In fact, to be clear, what happened was when you're at the academies, you don't get like a 3-month summer vacation. You get 3 weeks. And the other part of the summer is you have these summer programs, like one's called SERI, it's survival, evasion, resistance, and so where you learn to survive if you've gotten shot down kind of thing.
Sure.
And one was called non-com, where they sent me to Luke Air Force Base for 3 weeks to live with the non-commissioned people to see how that works. And that's when I kind of fell in love with Arizona. I mean, it was so exotic. I'm a kid from the Detroit area, and they sent me out here for 3 weeks. It was hot, but these airmen took me, 4-wheeling in the desert and tubing down the Salt River and all those and all the cool things. And so that's when I kind of was at a fork in the road and decided to move on in a different direction. So
let me stop right there.
So
this thing stopped for a second. Why did it stop?
We still got this.
Yeah, I mean, we got all it'll record it all. I just don't see. Like it froze. All right, I'm just gonna have to reload it.
How long ago to stop?
Are the answers too long?
No, you're good. Don't worry about it.
That's awesome. Are we back?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back.
It's the heat of the day internet surging.
It is.
Yeah.
That's a thing. We had a Cox guy come out because our internet was not working at all for like 5 days. And I said to him, I'm like, maybe I'm crazy, but when I'm at home and it's really hot outside, I feel like my TV is like constantly spooling and the internet is just not running as efficiently. And I'm like, is there anything to that? He goes, absolutely. He's like, in the hottest part of the day, wires constrict, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, it absolutely has an effect on the speed of the internet. Yeah. Super interesting. Yeah. Speaking of rackets, by the way.
All right. So pick us back up. So that's how you got to Arizona.
That's how I got to Arizona originally. Was just I was on an Air Force summer program from the academy.
Okay.
And then once I decided to resign, and I went back to Michigan, worked, saved some money so I could move out to Arizona. I didn't know anybody here.
Yep.
I had an old rickety Jeep, drove it across country, ended up in Tempe, and been here ever since.
So that's freaking wild.
That's so, and I love it. I still love it here.
Yeah. Yeah. So what year was that?
78.
When you moved here?
Yes.
Oh my God. I cannot freaking imagine the changes you've seen in this city, in this town.
Yeah,
wow.
The orange groves and they would just come right up to Tempe, and Gilbert really didn't even exist. It was just orange groves, and it was nice. Yeah. I mean, it's but
probably nicer back then when there wasn't 4 million people here.
It was cooler. I mean,
for sure.
We had more monsoons. Now, kind of look around the valley. It's like they can't push their way in around the perimeter. It's just, but we had more rain. It wasn't as hot as I recall. But
I bet it wasn't, because it's almost like it could cool off at night.
Well,
now it's just there's so much.
Heat Island and all that jazz.
Exactly. So,
all right. So keep going. You got here. You farted around for a little bit.
Yeah. So I was getting my in-state residency. So I basically came and just kind of hung out. And to get a job, I started driving a taxi part-time.
In-state residency?
To get lower tuition at Arizona State. Okay. Yeah. So you had to, instead of paying out-of-state tuition. So I just kind of hung out for get a driver's license, kind of establish a work history. So so when you start school, you pay ultra low tuition back then. Ultra low.
Yep. Can't imagine.
$300 a semester. That's how old I am. I'm dating myself, but yeah. So and then to the next phase, I picked up a hitchhiker, and I was kind of finding my way. I wasn't sure where I was headed, and I was young, 21, I guess, and he told me he goes to Alaska and works on crab boats and makes a bunch of money. And I thought, well, I'll do that. That's okay. Awesome. I'll go to Alaska.
Heck yeah.
So I did. And
wait, so you just basically hitched on with him and the next time?
He was a hitchhiker. No, I dropped him off, and I just planted a seed. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go to Alaska. I'll go work on fishing boats. But I had no idea what was ahead of me in that sense.
Sure.
Because it's not something you just kind of I remember I called up to the Department of Fish and Game or somebody in Alaska, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna come up to catch a can or something and work on crab boats." And the guy said, "Oh, well, do you have a job lined up?" And I said, "Well, no." And he goes, "You have experience?" And I said, "No." "You have a lot of money because it's really expensive here?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You shouldn't come."
That's what he said. That's awesome.
And I went,
yeah,
off I went. So I eventually got there. I went to Seattle first and beat the docks, as they call it. Walked up and down the docks, asking boats that were gearing up for the fishing season.
Oh,
need a deckhand. It's all the same thing. Have experience.
Yeah.
But it was persistent. I was like every day with my backpack, kind of sleeping where I could sleep.
How old were you?
This would have been, I'd have been 20, almost 22.
That's awesome.
Sleeping kind of under bridges and on dry dock boats and couldn't get a job. Finally, a guy he said, I needed a deckhand. And it was a little salmon troller, like a little, and it was just the skipper and me and a little wooden boat, little troller. And off we went up through Puget Sound and out the Straits of San Juan de Fuca to the tip of the Pacific Ocean there by the northwest tip. And I didn't know the bow from the stern. And after about 3 days, he put me ashore. He fired me. I didn't know what I was doing. So that didn't work. So back I went to Fisherman's Terminal trying to give them their job. Yeah. Eventually, it's a weird twist. Got a flight to Naknek, Alaska. This is before Federal Express. Okay. Yeah. And I got an odd job unloading some boxes of frozen crab off of a freight boat. And they said, well, if you guys do this, we'll send you to work construction on this cannery we're building in Naknek, Alaska, which is out in the kind of Bristol Bay toward the Bering Sea, Aleutian chain out that way. Yeah. So I walked into the office of the president of this, I guess call it fishery company. Yeah. And I said, hey, you guys said you were going to send me up there. And he looks at his foreman and he says, and there was some kind of a big bearing or something on the couch. And this is before Federal Express. And he goes, this guy can take this as cargo to Naknek. So I was basically a courier of a piece of equipment. So I'm in Naknek, start for 3 days. I'm working construction, digging ditches, Yeah. And I had Sunday off and I go, okay, I'm going down to the docks. And there's this old grizzly skipper walking up. And I said, excuse me, sir, do you know anybody that needs a deckhand? He goes, do you have any experience? And I said, oh yeah, I worked on a trawler out of Nia Bay. And he goes, you're hired. I guess one of his deckhands got drunk or didn't. Yeah. And so that was my first real summer-long job on tender in Bristol Bay, which is where they have the largest red salmon run in the world. Wow. It's a massive, awesome. Massive. Yeah. So that was my first year. And then that became, and 5 years later, I was the skipper of a salmon boat. So over the course of, so I became a fisherman. It was my identity. Awesome. It was what I did. Yeah. And I worked on the king crab boats on the Bering Sea. No way. Salmon, the whole, this was before Deadliest Catch. Yeah. Made it cool, but this was, and salmon boats in the summer and crab boats in the fall and the winter. Yeah. And then I'd come back and go to school for a semester and go back to Alaska, make money, come back to pay for,
Probably made good money, right?
I did okay. You get a commission of the catch. Yeah. You don't get paid a salary. Now on the tender, I think I got $75 a day for the whole summer. And but you eat and live on the boat. So you save it all up. But if you catch a lot of fish, you make a lot of money. Yep. If you don't break down, which I was on a crab boat one season, we geared up for 6 weeks, getting the gear ready, the crab pots. And then like a week into the season, we almost capsized in 3-foot seas. Wow. Luckily it was a calm day, but we almost, and we were sinking, and that was the end of the season. Huh. So I made zero money on that after 6 weeks of,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So
risky.
Yeah, it was. It's risky work.
Risk and reward, though, right?
Hopefully, the reward's there because it's.
So was it? Looking back on it, was it like a whole lot of fun? Do you see the show and think, man, they really glamorized this? It was actually really shitty, or
it's semi-accurate. The show. I mean, they've changed how the industry works now. Now each boat has a quota, and they say, okay, each boat can go catch 50,000 pounds. Okay. And so they just go out and they can go out in good weather. And when they catch their 50 pounds, that's it. Back when I did it, the Department of Fish and Game would say, okay, the whole fleet of 300 boats, we're going to catch 20 million pounds of crab. They'd ring a bell, ding, ding, and off you go. And then 6 weeks later or whatever it is, ding, ding, we've got the quota, season's over. So you just go nonstop, 24 hours a day. Yeah. So for instance, like salmon fishing was kind of fun, hard work, but it's in the summer, light, 24 hours a day. Basically, you're close to shore because the salmon run along the beach. So you lay your nets out there and pull, different kinds of netting. But crab fishing, you've seen it, the big pots. It's pretty monotonous.
It looks like it.
Throw them over.
Yeah,
make a loop, right?
And pick them up, and if there's crab, you rebait it, dump it back. And if there's no crab, you stack it on the deck, and that can get hairy. You're out there rolling around in 20, 30-foot seas, and and you're 200 miles from land, and it's dark because it's fall and winter. So now it's only light 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
But I would describe crab fishing as if you could be bored and terrified in the exact same instant, that's crab fishing.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So what was your takeaway from that experience?
Well, it's an honest way to make a living. I still have friends that they're pretty much retired now, but they did it. I quit after 5 years because, maybe a different opportunity came along, and I just said, okay, if you do this long enough, your chances increase. Right,
sure.
Of not coming home.
Something bad happening.
Yes, something bad happening. And, but it was, it's a spectacular place.
Yeah.
You're out there on the sea and you can look up and there's the Northern Lights and there's phosphorus in the water.
So cool.
I'm kind of exaggerating. And here's a killer whale breaching here and an eagle over here.
Yeah.
Not quite.
It doesn't happen at the same time like that.
You get the idea. Sure. You get the idea.
Capture that on video.
Yes. And there's a grizzly bear going down the beach.
Right.
But it's an amazing place up there.
Yeah.
And you realize how small you are.
Yeah. Okay.
When you're out on that ocean and the power, it's unforgiving.
Yeah.
So no mistakes allowed, no swimming allowed. Tides are big, water's cold.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
Yeah.
No, thank you. No, thank you. So would you say there's something to the Midwest work ethic?
I think so. It was a different time. I think, when you're a kid back there, you have the paper route.
Yeah.
You kind of try to make a buck, and it's just the values and the time. It seems like, and I don't mean to be critical of a generation, but it seems like a lot of younger people, they want to start out as CEO.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way. It's a grind. It's a marathon race, and you build slowly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think,
those are the same people that are out of touch with reality, obviously.
Yeah.
They weren't the kids like you're talking about at 10 years old, you're shoveling driveways for your neighbor and stuff like that,
Yeah. Cutting grass in the summer, shoveling, driveways for $1 or whatever. You just knock on doors and, and to your point earlier, Sean,
Sean doesn't make points.
The philosophical one about the burning guy, the burning man, not the burning man up in the Black Rock Desert, but the other burning man. I agree with that 100%. Things just don't come.
Right.
You have to create and you have to chase, and for most people, anyway.
Right. Sure.
And that's it.
Yep.
And if we can instill that in younger people, then they'll be better off.
100%. So raise your daughter accordingly, Sean.
Oh man, done already, man. If we had her on the show, she'd just be complaining about how hard it is.
Oh, living in the Faber house.
Oh man, it is not an easy living there.
I can only imagine.
Shoot.
Does she take the garbage out? What chores does Evelyn have?
Oh, quite a few actually. Yeah. She has to, clean her room, make her bed, take the garbage out, feed the dog, take the dog out, pick up the dog poop.
Good.
All of those things.
Yep.
And for that, she basically gets everything she wants.
Oh, hey, that sounds like a fair
huge
trade.
Softie.
That's a fair trade. Yeah. So if she's listening right now, is she doing good at her jobs?
Oh no, awful. Awful. Like on the accountability factor, like she is at the bottom. Like I hold her, just basically let her get away with murder. But I make sure that she eventually does it, and we learn the accountability. Hey, you didn't do that, you don't get this.
Yep.
I know you're gonna cry, and it's okay.
It's okay. Cry.
Just cry.
Yep. Same way you handle your employees, basically.
Yes, but much less respectful.
How about you, Tom? You got kids?
I do.
Yeah.
I have grandkids actually.
Oh, good for you.
My daughter is married and lives in Carlsbad with the two my two grandmasters who were just here with my wife and I for a week.
Awesome.
For Camp Grandpa.
And you survived.
Had t-shirts made. They're great. You know what?
When they get made, that is awesome.
This is the second year in a row. Last year we did Lake Tahoe for Camp Grandpa. This year we just stayed here.
I thought you were going to say you went to Mexico with them.
No, that was that was to rest. We went to Tucson and went to Kartchner Cavern.
Oh, cool! I love that. Yeah, I love
Kartchner
Cavern.
Air and Space Museum.
Yep.
What else did we do? Well, we went to we spent a night at Kitt Peak Observatory. So they could look at the moon and the stars. That was interesting.
Interesting.
Cool.
You know, we didn't spend the whole night. You can, but we did the 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. thing.
Oh.
So Tucson was good.
That's cool.
There was fun in there too. And
sure.
And so
Camp Grandpa. I gotta remember that one. So I got to ask you. I'm not there quite yet, but probably in the next 2-3 years.
Oh, it's coming, buddy.
What do they call you? Do they call you Grandpa, or do they got like a cool name for you?
They call me Grandpa.
Call you Grandpa. Just traditional
Midwestern stuff. And then I have a son, a grown son, that he lives in Thailand.
Oh wow!
So
nice.
Yeah, he's kind of made his way over there, and I don't see him coming back. And I just went to visit him about a month ago. We instead of going to Thailand this time, we met in Bali.
Nice,
which I'd never been to.
Yep.
And
cool.
and we just hung out for a week, played around at golf, went fishing, and it was great. It was but he's a school teacher there and he likes it.
Wow.
And
I've heard a lot of good things about Thailand.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's
what I've heard.
It's great culture, amazing beaches, very affordable.
I was going to say affordable.
It's insanely fair.
Yeah.
But it's great.
Yeah.
All right, so let's pick it back up. So, you get back, done fishing. The next thing I see on the list here is you bought a bar, you bought a restaurant. How did you?
That came a little later. So my late brother was a steel salesman, and what he sold was single pole billboard structures.
Okay.
In the old days,
now it's starting to make sense now. Okay.
In the old days, the billboards that you see, and they're still around town, they were on those 2 I-beams kind of things. Well, the company that he worked for and became kind of a partner in, they started this more modern looking monopole thing, and they were right here in Phoenix, and they shipped these things all over the country. He was a traveling salesman.
Okay.
And when I would come home from Alaska and tell my tales from the high seas, eventually he's like, "Hey, Tom, why don't you go in the billboard business? This is getting a little crazy up there." And I said, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." So it was kind of like the Alaska thing. It's just, I started a billboard company. My dad was retired from General Motors. They had migrated out here, and it's just there's the way it works is there's a finite number of locations per zoning ordinances where you can put these things. So the real estate guys in those companies are fighting over those. So it's gotten really competitive. And it's changed in that now we have these digital displays.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, how this has evolved over the course of 40 years. My goodness.
Well, when I started, they would do some of it was that paper poster stuff, and then others were the hand paints. And you would literally remember the old opaque projectors.
Yep.
You would go into a big warehousey thing.
Project it,
and they'd project, and then they would hand paint like the Marlboro Man on the sign. And then a boom truck would have to take those panels out to the sign and hang those panels up on the sign, a crew.
Yeah.
Okay. And And that was tough. It was expensive, and it was cumbersome. Well, along comes a guy that invents a machine, computerized thing that has basically spray. You use these big vinyl tablecloths, we'll call them, 14 feet wide by 48 feet long, run them through this computer, and these spray nozzles spray the ad copy on. Wow. Changed everything.
How long ago was that?
That was, I would say that was in about the 90s.
Okay.
Like the
low
low
really
90s.
Big printer.
Yeah. And what it did is it made the advertising copy consistent in Phoenix and Chicago and Detroit, where before the Marlboro people had to rely on the skills of the local painter.
So were people still painting these things up into the 90s?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really?
And they would paint, just like subdivision signs, they still hand paint some of those things, those wooden signs. Yep. But that printer and those vinyls really changed the industry, because now a crew could go out and just hang the vinyl over the faces. They didn't have to take the actual panels down and take those to a shop and bring them back. So that really changed things. And then of course then the LEDs came along in early 2000s.
Okay. So what does one of those billboards cost
to build?
Or do you build them? Do you buy them? Or what's your position?
Well, what typically in the industry is what you do is we go out and we lease property. Okay. And then we sign a ground lease.
Yep.
And we have a landlord, and we go to get a building permit. And if it's on a federally funded or state road, we have to get 2 permits, one from the department, ADOT, and one from the local municipality, whether that's City of Phoenix or whomever. And then we buy the steel, and then we build the sign, install it.
Yep.
And then we have salesmen that go out and try to peddle the advertising space.
Okay. So that's how.
And hopefully there's a delta between what we take in and what we pay out. And I will say this, though, another big thing that's changed is the landlords from back in the 80s. You'd pay a guy a couple $100 a year, some farmer, right?
Yeah.
And it's different now. The guys that own property, these commercial industrial zone properties, they're real estate experts, and they get it. So it's not as easy, and it's a lot more expensive. To get a deal with the property owners nowadays.
Okay, so I got to stop you there, because this is where we kind of loop in a little bit. Kit and I were talking about earlier, so this is where you're going to have some stories. I mean, how many signs do you think you've built and put in over your career?
Hundreds and hundreds. I mean,
I got to ask from kind of both of our perspectives. Like, you built a lot of foundations, right? I mean, how do you get these things that this one pole and it's got this huge overhang? Like, how deep what's the deepest one that you ever put in?
As a matter of fact, we're building one right now in Seattle. They just sent me pictures today of the foundation they put in. They had to put a casing down there because in Seattle the soil is so. They literally have to pump water out of it while they're drilling.
Right.
The casings in. A lot different here in Arizona. Crazy. In Arizona, we have this good lateral load. What do you call it? Load bearing pressure. So, here we can just do a drill. Say you go down. Say the sign is going to be 50 feet tall. Okay, and they're big signs. And they weigh a lot. You might go down 30 feet with a 5-foot diameter hole, and just put the column in, which is maybe a 3-foot. Diameter column with a wall thickness of whatever, and then just do a direct pour of the concrete around it. And here that works pretty well in this type of soil. Up in a place like Seattle,
not so much.
It's a lot more expensive and a lot harder, just because of
you got to pump out the groundwater, because it's obviously it's going to be there, because you're basically at groundwater.
Or I built one in the Bay Area where they had to pump some kind of a gooey substance into the hole to make the hole hold up so it wouldn't collapse. And then that had to be taken out and put into a tanker truck and taken to be disposed of, which costs. So it's different everywhere, but and then you could do cube footings. You don't have to do the drill.
Right.
It just depends, but
so the biggest, deepest you've ever been?
Well, I'll tell you the biggest. The biggest at Tempe Marketplace, which is, know where that is. Those 4 giant billboards, I built those in 2007, and those were the first digitals that were in Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Were my companies. Yeah. And so we beat the big boys to the digital.
Yeah.
Those were the first digitals that were installed in the city. Anyway, but that Tempe Marketplace is also on a landfill.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So we started to dig, and it was like digging in kitty litter.
Oh
so the one cube footing that was supposed to take, call it 30 yards of concrete, took 220. It just kept collapsing. So it was like
kept going.
It was horrible. So that was the biggest. So those signs ain't going anywhere. But
so I got to ask, have you ever put a sign in the wrong spot?
Not because it's a surveyor's mistake. What? Don't blame it on the
well,
surveyor.
all right. So this is kind of a, a little different episode, but loop in a little bit of, how do you know where you're at? And a lot of times it's you're leasing a sliver here between this property and then the state's, how do you find that little zone where you're allowed to put your spot?
We do a lot of, I think we've used your company, haven't we?
Oh, of course.
We do boundary surveys. We just did one in Seattle. I said, you guys need to go identify the property line. So the head of the sign is not hanging over the neighboring property.
Right?
Yeah, that too. So go. And of course we have to do all the underground detection services so we don't hit something. And that's happened. I mean, it's happened a few times. In Vegas, once we were building one on Tropicana, and that sign's still up, right at Tropicana and Koval. The Southwest Gas came out and said, "No, you're good to go." They pulled away and they weren't a mile away. The driller starts and he hits a gas line.
Oh, wow.
Had to shut down the hotel. Nobody got hurt.
No way.
Nobody got hurt, but they had to evacuate the restaurant and the hotel.
Wow.
But we were in the clear because Southwest Gas came out.
Yeah. Gave you the go ahead, right?
Exactly. So
do you compete with cell companies for these lease areas?
No,
you guys fight for the same.
That's a different ordinance. That's a whole different thing.
Okay.
So no, we don't compete with them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, where did the taxi driver fit into all this?
Well, I was going to school and I was, out here and I just needed a job. I needed money. So I thought, I got a job driving a taxi and it was kind of part-time but it fit in, and I did it for a few years, driving those big old checker cabs. Remember those things, those giant tanks?
Yep.
No, Tom, I don't remember that.
Okay, well, and I would drive at night.
Sean only knows Lyft and Uber.
Exactly. I would only drive at night because that's when the night people were out and it was fun.
Oh, sure.
I had a lot of fun. And if I had to study, I'd go wait in line at the airport. But who needs that?
Right.
I would just kind of patrol the streets, and it was a fun job.
Yeah.
I've always said if things go south, I'll just go drive a taxi. I mean, it was, and then one summer I was up in Alaska. I was in Anchorage, and the fishermen were on strike, so there was no fishing.
Yeah.
So there was, and so for 3 weeks I was in Anchorage. I drove a taxi at night in Anchorage, and that was kind of cool. Wow. It was fun,
Yeah. Well, you get to meet so many interesting people. I can't imagine.
You really do.
Yeah.
So how'd you buy a bar?
Well, I didn't buy it. So I'd been in the billboard business now for 5 years. Now we're up to 90. I'd sold my company in Phoenix. And I went to Albuquerque. I had no compete here. So I went to Albuquerque, built a bunch of signs over there, a bunch, meaning like 8, and sold those to 3M because National 3M was in the business for a long time, sold those. And so I was living in Fountain Hills with my first wife, my 2 little kids. And some guys I knew from the local bar said, "Hey, we're going to open this bar." Now this is out Fountain Hills Way, Northeast Scottsdale, in 1990, and it's brand new out there. And we're going to open this restaurant, and we bought this franchise called the Philadelphia Bar and Grill. You want to be a partner, a third partner? I said, "Yeah, I've never done that. Yeah, let's do it. I've never worked in a restaurant."
Yeah.
So we did, and the franchisor basically disappeared with our money.
Oh wow.
One guy, like literally a week later, said, "I don't want to do this anymore." And then the other, so it was me and one guy now, and I'm building a restaurant, and I've never worked in one. And it was called Philly. So I changed it. It was called Philly's Bar and Grill.
Okay.
And up at 92nd and Shea, where there was no competition.
Yeah.
There was nothing out there. There were like two little things, but it was exploding. So and back then is when you had those 10-foot satellite dishes.
Yeah.
So and people didn't have DirecTV yet; it didn't exist.
Yeah.
So on weekends, people from Iowa and Minnesota and Cleveland, they were hanging from the rafters to come in and watch their team because we had these 5 giant dishes, and we could, we have that kind of market.
Yeah.
And it was great. Again, I had a lot of fun. Met my current wife there.
Yeah.
And it was, and I made good money. I mean, I was making money.
Sure.
So I opened a second one down at Scottsdale and McKellips. That Phillies is still there.
That one's still there.
Yes, been there.
I was,
Yeah.
So I opened a second one. So I was the founder of that Phillies.
Yeah.
And instead of having one that was making money, now I had two that were breaking even.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was like, okay, wait, this is back in the cash society. And so that's when I kind of, so after 5 years, kind of a 5-year pattern here, 5 years of fishing.
Yeah.
5 years. After 5 years, I said, you know what, I'm out. And by that time, a lot of the Pima corridor was really building up. The 101 was being built.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember like 8 restaurants, Applebee's, Chili's, a bunch of them.
Yep.
All opened within 6 months. So I knew it was going to, like, the numbers were going to. So I sold them both within a week of each other to different guys, different parties. And I went back in the billboard business. Basically, I was never out of it, but
sure.
I took a hiatus and then I went back in the billboard business. So that was the bar story.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it was,
I know. I already know where you're thinking because,
well, it was hard because the staffing.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have
Could you imagine trying to do it now? It's
no,
worse.
I mean, it's a whole different world, and hiring. I mean, that realm of people that work in that industry are all great, and it's a lot of fun. But man, it is a different animal than
it's like
normal.
It's so incestuous, it's weird.
You would have like a server would say, well, you're on the schedule Friday night. And she'd say, well, can I have that off? I have a date or something.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's a Suns playoff game. I mean, we need all hands on deck here.
Yeah.
And then she would just quit and, get a
job at Applebee's across the street.
Yeah. So it was difficult. There were challenges in that sense, but
the first ghosting.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
All right. So you have this you've done all the things, and now you're still own a billboard company, still putting billboards up, doing the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you look back, like what do you think the biggest challenge was along the way, or what was the biggest setback that you had to overcome?
Besides your current project that we need to talk about.
We'll get to it in a second.
I don't know. It's I guess sounds like I got bored because I kept changing.
Are you ADD?
No,
by chance?
I'm not ADD.
No?
Well, because ADD is more like 5 minutes, not 5 years.
Oh, that's why I'm ADD.
I think that it's and what I tell some of the young people that I know, it's okay to reinvent yourself. It's
good.
And I'll just get not political per se, but I think one problem is if a person has a job and they want to become entrepreneurial and start a business, they literally can't leave the job because of health insurance.
True.
And that's a shame.
Yep.
And it's kind of sad that, if we had just a basic national health care program, then people could explore and do more things and be more
open
creative.
Up doors.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But people can't leave their job because they can't lose their health insurance. And that's kind of a shame where, I've always been, I guess looking back, I've never really had a job. I've always been an independent, even on the fishing boats. You're a crewman and you get paid a commission.
Yep.
Have you ever had an annual salary?
I never have. No.
So interesting.
Right?
Never had one.
I've never
really thought about it. But
have you ever had, well, I guess you did have a boss on that salmon boat.
The skipper. Yeah. But you're an independent, and the season might last 6 weeks or 2 months. And then the season's over and you're off the boat and you go look for another job on another boat.
Yeah.
Over time, luckily in Alaska, I gained experience. Yeah. So people would say, hey, Tom, we have a job opening on this herring season. Or on this crab season. So you get to know people and then once you know what you're doing. And ultimately I leased a boat and hired my own crew in my last year. And so I was the skipper. Yeah. And that was kind of cool.
Wow.
But,
that's awesome.
But anyway, so I just think that as far as challenges, I think it's okay to not declare your entire life and what's ahead of you. It's okay to say, I don't know. Because if you haven't done anything, for instance, then you don't know what you don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how can you declare? So it's not bad if a person says, I want to change careers.
I
think it's healthy and it's a good thing. It's kept my life pretty interesting because I learn new things.
Yeah.
And
let's segue that into kind of one of the things we have in common, or we have this shared interest in
barbers. You have the same barber.
And,
don't need one. Don't need shampoo either.
I mean, the list can go on and on of the benefits.
Yes.
But talk a little bit about how did you get into this project? We talked about it's in Tempe. You decided to buy some land, and then it kind of snowballed from there. Tell us a little bit about that.
So back to the billboard. So we built these billboards on Tempe Marketplace, and at the time Tempe didn't allow billboards, but we did a development agreement with the city. The Tempe Marketplace people had some political influence, and they had some billboards. We traded, whatever. So they were the only billboards out there, which was kind of nice. But then we got rumblings that this landfill that was right next to it to the east, somebody was one of the big companies was sniffing around to put some signs up on that. So this was back in like 12, 13, Great Recession. The property went into foreclosure. My billboard partner and I decided, let's buy that property for two reasons. One, to get and build more billboard entitlement rights, and two, to protect our, I don't want to use the M word, our exclusive position out there. So if anybody's going to have billboards on that corner, it's where the 101, 202 converge. So we bought it out of foreclosure. Got a great price. But it was a landfill. Yeah. And we thought, okay, we'll get the rights. We'll carve off these billboard easements.
And it was a construction debris landfill, right?
That's right. Prior to that, in the 70s, it was a gravel pit.
Yeah.
Before the freeways existed, it was a giant pit.
Yeah.
And then when they went to fill in the pit, they just dumped mostly construction debris, concrete, trees, carpets, but there was some organics. So we decided, we thought we'll buy the land. We forgot about the land for a couple of years. We weren't thinking about it. And, but we got the entitlements for some billboards. And then we thought, well, we'll just sell the land to some of these big development companies, and they'll, it's great. It's great. It's a great corner.
Yep.
Well, they didn't want the land because it's a landfill.
Yeah.
So we were kind of stuck. And I said, well, why don't we double down and like put in the infrastructure and like make pads and sell the pads and things like that. And so I did, and had never been developed anything.
And you chose a construction landfill to be your first development intro into the world.
Sean, you're not the first person that's made that comment. A little bit of hair on this deal.
My comment was going to be when you put up those first billboards and you had all those problems.
You're like, let's do more of that.
Like I had fun.
Not yet.
Let's do that on a
Remember
much
that
larger
one
scale.
that went from like 2 yards of concrete to 200 yards? Like, let's do that again.
Yeah. And this very morning, I was out there watching grout being pumped under one of my buildings because the building's sinking.
Oh, okay.
And it's been a nightmare. Part of it. It's been an ongoing problem because we didn't engineer and build the buildings like we should have. I've learned now it's a little late, but it's costly. But so what we did is we hired some experts and a contractor who's well known and good, engineering firm who's good, geotechs. We put the property into the DEQ, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, into a remediation project, voluntary remediation. So they were out there sampling. And we designed the infrastructure, the street, with all the utilities, and it was a very learning experience. I've learned a lot about dirt, not enough apparently, but I've learned a lot about soil, and it took a long time. So what we did is though we used this concept called deep dynamic compaction, where a crane, actually we had two, lifts a 20-ton weight. It's about 8 by 8 feet by 3 feet thick, 60 feet into the air. And then they release it, and it just drops. And it pounds the soil.
Is it like a diameter of 20 feet or something, or what?
No. The weight is like 8 by 8 feet.
8 by 8, okay.
By 3.
Gotcha.
And it drops, and it pounds the soil, and they measure, and they go, okay, the soil just compressed 18 inches. And then they lift it up, pound it again. And you can feel this thing from a half-mile radius. The whole earth shook for a year. I mean, it was insane.
Your neighbors had to love you.
Oh no, they didn't. We would keep in touch with them though. But and then they would measure and say, okay, it went 6 inches. It dropped. And then they do it again. Okay, it only dropped an inch. They pound it again. It didn't drop. Let's move on to the next 12 foot on center and do it. 1 million drops over a year, 2 cranes just pounding the soil.
Yeah. That sounds expensive.
It was expensive, but you think when I say crab fishing was tedious, can you imagine these guys in this crane?
Yeah.
But,
Or the guy measuring it out there, like, okay,
Hit us again, George.
hit it again.
Yep.
All right, another inch. Keep going
yeah. So
for a year.
How much soil is on top of the landfill portion?
about 2 or 3 feet. That's it. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Oh my!
So
gosh. How could you even put like infrastructure in?
well,
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Okay,
so
fair enough.
So we would dig, and we would be digging trenches for the storm system and the utilities.
Yeah.
And you'd be digging out tires.
Really?
And
But the reason I brought up the construction landfill is that it's construction debris. It's
Sure.
concrete and tires and inert. It's not, what you throw
not
away.
biodegradable
Yeah,
stuff
it's
or
none of
whatever.
that
Yeah.
stuff. It's the
Yeah.
construction debris.
Sure.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Rubble.
a few small pockets, but not much.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of probing, so we tried to identify those spots.
Yeah.
And then we kind of determined, where the road would go. But every time they would stick the excavator in the ground, the environmental engineers would test it and say, okay, this can go back in the ground as fill. And if it got exported, we had to take it to a special landfill, which was costly. So anything we exported had to be tested first and then sent to wherever they sent it. But it was a big project. And now at the site, 7 years later, there are, and we expanded. We bought some property adjacent to on both sides. And kind of
So is that tripling down or quadrupling down, or I mean,
well, what kind of factor can you say? Quadruple plus a couple zeros. Yeah, it was costly. It was stressful.
but you're already in there, so you're like, why don't we just go ahead and do it? You've already learned all the things, right?
I was halfway across the ocean and I couldn't stop. It was, there was no turning back. And I was just trying to figure out, and my partner that started with me, he kind of like the restaurant, he bailed pretty early. He said, I can't do this. I'm not, not interested. So I was kind of, okay, well, now I have to figure this part out too.
Yeah.
But got through it. There's 2 hotels. There's, some big office buildings.
Yeah.
Like we're talking 150,000 square foot buildings. 2 of those Freedom Financial buildings.
Yep.
Boyer company out of Salt Lake came in, bought a pad here, bought a pad there, built the vertical parts. Some apartment guys came in. Yeah. 2 apartment complexes that have gone up.
Yep.
So it's, aside from learning that we shouldn't have built buildings on compacted, deep dynamic compaction soil.
Yeah.
It's been a success. It's been an amazing success because we transformed what was an eyesore into something, a huge economic generator for the city of Tempe.
Right.
And that's the thing that I think is lost on a lot of this is that when you take you drive past, it used to be, and I remember before you did anything, it was, Tempe Marketplace is cool. And then there's literally this just fucking rubble filled area. And now it's cool buildings and hotels. And I mean, it's a thing, and it fits in that spot much better than what was there.
I'm real proud of it.
all the issues aside, it's still a cool project, and the fact that it was pulled off.
Yeah. The issues, the issues are that now we're pumping grout under these 5 buildings that are up on that elevated portion of the landfill. What should have happened, at the beginning is we should have used those piers, not helical piers, because I guess you can't do those in trash, but the high pressure piers where they basically build the building and the foundation on piers that go down to native. Yeah. And we're doing that retroactively in a sense by pumping grout under these buildings to stabilize these things, because they've shifted more than a normal.
But the other reason why you're doing that is because it's permanent. Like these buildings, and especially like the restaurant, like those things are going to be there forever or for a very, very long time. And it's more valuable for them to be there and then just get stabilized than to knock it down and start over. Like it's more established. And I don't know, that's probably been debated, but it's a more established area now because of what you've done. Is my point. Like if it was out in the boondocks,
sure,
you wouldn't do this. It is in a great spot and a high traffic area where it makes sense to rehabilitate versus
versus a tremendous amount has been invested in the buildings, you know, prior to the subsidence. I mean, it's so to just condemn the building, that would be basically where I'm looking at this, like for instance, my retail building where Spanato's restaurant is and Daily Dose. That we're pumping underneath right now. I'm looking at it like, well, this just adds to the cost basis. Okay, instead of it costing X, it's X plus this grout.
Sure.
So,
who's the manufacturer of that grout?
It's just normal grout.
Like I need a name. I need a name. Cemex?
Yeah.
I'm going to buy stock in this company. Is what I'm saying.
There's one of 4 material suppliers that they're getting it from.
Basically sand and it's cement.
It's just
They use a high pressure hose and they pump it in, and they monitor the pressure as it fills these voids. And there's some big voids under there.
Yeah, and that pressure dictates how much they are confident that it'll get in deeper and deeper, and eventually it'll just fill all up.
It goes down into they drill these 6-inch diameter holes down to native,
and
they pump it in there, and it migrates out to the side and just fills all
the gaps,
and then hardens. So we've got a giant concrete block under this building. Or we will in a few weeks. But
all right,
so one question: how do you monitor the subsidence?
Elevation surveys. First of all, you can see the cracks.
Yeah, well, I mean, visually you can see.
Oh yeah, you can see. I mean, literally on this retail building, the windows were cracking.
Yeah, sure.
You couldn't open the doors.
Yeah,
and there's cracks in the pad, and there's cracks in the walls, and it's so that was our first clue.
Sure,
and then from that point, now we've continually been doing elevation surveys. With the laser, and they just keep it set up and monitor. Okay, this moved. We did this grout, and it moved 1/10 of an inch. That's okay. That's acceptable. 10 inches is not.
So when it's subsiding, is there like, are you also like, I don't know, for lack of better words, like pumping it up to bring it back up to the grade it should be at?
No, we're not. Because I'm learning this as I go. I guess that can hurt the pipes. And so if you push on it, so you want to stabilize it, but not we don't need to jack it up. It's not that bad. Some buildings though, right, I guess need to be jacked up.
Sure.
When they really, then they have to jack the things up. These we just kind of stabilize it.
And then make the adjustments around it.
And if you walk like this on the kind of walk downhill a little bit, that's
Well, and I think what Kim was thinking about too is there's a lot of things you can do as far as remote sensing, and just instead of having people come out and survey it all the time, you just stick a thing out there and it just watches it and it just reports back. Hey, like, Tom, if you listen to the show a little bit, you might hear some of these great.
I hear his wife listens to podcasts. Maybe she can report back to him.
She's a podcast.
All right, so back to it. So awesome stuff there. Like really crazy project that the fact that you even decided to get into that. It's a little, we're getting to the end here. It's a little bit of reflection time. Like looking back, like, would you do anything different? This first question. I got 2 more, but first question, would you do anything different?
I got one too. Let me go next.
Okay. All right.
I wouldn't. I think, and this is, when I decided that I really wanted to go to the academy and, fly and go to space, all those things young kids want to do. And so it was a
early Tom Cruise.
Yeah. It was a tough decision that was a tough fork in the road. And I promised myself when I left there